martial arts, even if you have a black belt, you can't necessarily beat everyone up, but you are taught not to fear. You're not afraid of other people that may pick on you. You're not afraid to say no. You believe, stand up for yourself. You have that kind of courage.
We don't only talk about discouraging drugs. We talk about many different things, including violence prevention.
We have some rules, which are tenets, we call them in Taekwondo, which is honor, courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, courage, and community.
The benefit of learning Taekwondo to the youth is really teaching them a lot of courtesy, respect, and discipline. It's very important that when you go through life that you have strong basics, and kicks and punches are important to keep a healthy body, but teaching a lot of courtesy and respect, those are things that are going to carry them forward in life and give them the confidence to say no to drugs or to say no to violence or other different things that they get involved in.
Every kid is a winner, every kid is special. And so every child that comes in here, they know they're not compared to another child. They know that we're looking at themselves, and so they learn to look internally. In other words, they don't compare themselves to little Johnny next to them. I don't have as nice clothes as little Johnny, or little Johnny smoking pot, maybe I should do the same thing to look cool. They're confident within themselves of who they are, and that's what they're confident in. They don't have to have acceptance of other people.
Something for somebody to go need some sort of stimulus, something's missing in their life, and they need to be filled up with friendship, filled up with positive things and then negative things. It's important that we talk to those people and know that they have that support outside the group, and they don't have to rely on other friends and people outside a positive group. They got to know that there's other things out there than just the negative group.
One big thing with gymnastics, it teaches you a lot of pride. I mean, you learn how to have pride in your body and to be healthy, and you take pride into being healthy, and you consider yourself important.
If you chose to partake in drug use or to drink or smoke, you just wouldn't be able to do gymnastics. You wouldn't have the physical stamina to do it. You couldn't. Gymnastics is so physically demanding, and there's so much self-discipline and self-control that the discipline alone discourages you from doing anything like that.
They have choices, and we also teach them that with every choice comes a consequence. So with the choice of not doing drugs, they might have the consequence of somebody that's offering it to them saying, oh, well, you're not cool, but inside they know that they're still cool. They have a place to be cool, and that's our gym.
Yeah.
It's always not my chop. We see what we want to see.
It just comes along and smacks you in the face sometimes.
My God, they never said anything to me.
I think the dangerous aspect of everything is that we think it's a phase. And sure enough, some children will probably maybe smoke marijuana a couple times and be done with it. But there are other children, like my son, who will graduate to much bigger and better things. You know it's happening. You think, well, he's hurting himself, he's hurting our family. But once it got to the point where he was going to start selling, I knew there'd be other children involved, other teens, other parents would be feeling the way I do. That was it. You can't ignore $3,000 worth of marijuana that's all rolled and ready to go. And the right thing for my son at that point was to turn him over to the authorities. Don't help your child become a drug addict or a drug dealer. It's basically what Carol O'Connor says on TV. Do whatever you can to get between your kids and drugs.
This is Hugh. This is my son. He started on drugs when he was 16. When his life became confused, unreal, filled with horrifying hallucinations, he ended his life. Get between your kids and drugs any way you can if you want to save the kid's life.
It's not a phase. By the time you suspect something, it's probably been going on quite a while. I mean, just don't, for the sake of your child's future. And for the sake of your own sanity, you just can't ignore some of the signs. I don't even know if he's forgiven me yet today. But to tell you the truth, I don't care.
He will.
He will.
You know, I look at him and I think, you know, boy, by now, if we hadn't had this intervention, God knows what you'd be doing. Maybe you wouldn't even be alive. You know, and I don't look for his forgiveness. I don't, like I said, it doesn't matter.
I think parents usually the last to know, but then on the other hand, a lot of times I think they see the signs, or they recognize the signs, but they don't want to admit it. They have a hard time accepting.
I used to manipulate my mother by, you know, every time I was around her, I would talk the positive talk, but when I was away from her, I would walk the negative walk, you know? But like I said, being as though my mother was never wanted to see any wrong in me, it was easier for me to do that.
I was around 12 or 13 when I started smoking marijuana. She had that trust in me because, I mean, I've never done anything like that before. But towards like the middle of my usage, she knew. I'll say it was like maybe 6 months until she knew.
There's something in the field that we call denial. People who are habituated, dependent, or addicted to drugs have denial, where they'll say, I can quit anytime I want. Well, parents also engage in a state of denial. Which do you think is going to be more painful and embarrassing, losing a child to drugs and alcohol or asking for help? If you ignore the problem or you do not admit to the problem just gets worse. And yes, it may be embarrassing to acknowledge and admit that your child has a substance abuse problem or an addiction, but it's going to be a lot worse if the consequences pile up to the point where they hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. So what I would encourage you to do is to ask for help, talk to family members, talk to clergy people, talk to school personnel, talk to, if they're on probation or parole officers, talk to drug and alcohol counselors, but seek help.
Practically every young man or woman that I've ever talked to said the same thing. You know, I've been getting high for about a year or two, even before my parents had a clue. Now let me ask you this. How is it possible that your son or daughter that lives in the same household as yourself gets high on marijuana or drinks a great deal of alcohol or is huffing butane gas and we don't know about it? How is that possible?
I don't think my mother had a clue that my drug usage and drug abuse was so terrible and so heavy. I don't know if I don't believe she was in denial. I just really think that I hid it very well because I was a good student. You know, parents have these things where, well, maybe if my kid's not going to school or maybe if my kid's not having good grades or whatever. I was one of those children, you know, one of those kids that I kept going to school. I mean, I missed a lot of days, but I kept my grades up and I had this facade of that everything was okay. And, you know, my life didn't come crashing down around me until I almost died, like I said, of a drug overdose.
How did you hide it? What kinds of things would you do to hide the fact that you were getting high besides the grades?
Well, I would, besides what?
Besides the grades.
Well, I would just make sure that whatever I was supposed to do, I did pretty much. You know, I didn't stay out. I mean, I would sneak out, but my mother wouldn't know it. I was just really, I got really good at being sneaky. And then I was hiding the needle marks by doing it like where I wore my watch. I would use a vein where I made sure that things could hide it, clothing, jewelry, so things like that. So I would hide my track marks and just, you know, was very good at hiding it and still looking good.
The way I hid it from everybody else was by trying to constantly do the things that I normally did. You can only hide it but so much, but what I did was, like I said, I tried to maintain my regular routine.
When people smoke marijuana excessively, abusively, and addictively, and a lot of people do not consider marijuana addicting. I work with people who acknowledge that they're addicted to marijuana. It attaches to fat cells in the brain, and it can cause a condition called amotivational syndrome. Amotivational syndrome is where the person's short-term memory is affected. They don't remember things. Hence, when adolescents go to school and they smoke marijuana before school, they smoke marijuana in school, they're unable to retain information. Their coordination's off, their reflexes are off, they're apathetic, they're lethargic, they're fatigued, and you put all that together, you have someone who basically is not interested in life.
I guess the first thing I did was become real detached from everybody. Wouldn't really share or talk to my parents, and I had a really bad attitude all the time. Like, if you're not high, you have the worst attitude until you get high again, and then when you come down, it's even worse than it was before. So I had a really bad attitude, spent a lot of time in my room. My appearance changed drastically from when I wasn't high, especially physically, as far as how much I weighed, circles under my eyes, like really, really dark circles under my eyes. Their attitude, their appearance, and the people they hang out with. If certain friends seem to go away, friends they were really close with, and other friends that you haven't heard of replace them. Phone calls, a lot of phone calls. People who are dealing usually get 20 phone calls an hour. When they get phone calls, all their phone rings off the hook. People who won't leave their name, people whose names are calling your house and you don't know who they are. And unwilling to do anything. They don't want to do anything but hang out. They want to go out with their friends. They don't want to play sports necessarily. They don't want to do anything active, especially active. Anything productive, that's it. They just want to hang out. They come home, they go to sleep, they wake up the next day and they go through the same routine.
I lost a lot of friends. My decisions, my attitudes, they just got so mixed up. I stopped listening to people. I stopped caring about who I had to hurt or what I had to do to get the money and the drugs. You only see one thing and you only think one thing, and that's drugs. But your whole lifestyle changes, you know? You're no longer the Chris or the person you used to be. You're somebody just living for drugs and alcohol.
When you talk about any substance and you talk about a commitment or investment to the substance, you'll start seeing a person whose interests in life, whether it was sports, school, hobbies, start to fall off. And they become committed and invested to that drug and the lifestyle of that drug. So you start to see their associations with friends change. They pick up new drug-using associates. You'll start to see sometimes weight issues. Sometimes they will gain weight. They particularly might gain weight with marijuana because marijuana, THC, affects the appetite center of the brain, and in the marijuana world they call it munchies, getting the munchies, and they eat a lot. With other drugs such as coke, methamphetamine, LSD, that reduces the appetite so they lose weight. You'll start to see an attitude change, and that goes with any kind of addiction, including marijuana. You'll see somebody who basically had a nice attitude. Drugs do not stay in the body, so as they come down and they crash, you're going to see irritability, negative attitude. You'll see basically people either not care for marijuana or they have a chip on their shoulders. Once they have a chip on their shoulders, they will start finding fault with people in the house, with relationships. They might become explosive when they're not high, argumentative, and basically they're just very, very negative.
It was kind of like you just got burned out, you're just tired, lazy, totally unmotivated.
When they start to lose interest in some of the sports activities that they've usually been involved with, when they start hanging with friends that they haven't normally hung around with,
and getting into maybe some trouble. When the kids get to the point that they don't want you to know where they're going, and they're trying to give you explanations of how they're spending their money, or they don't want you to know how they're spending their money, at that point there's an issue. But the larger point really is that if a parent's involved in their child's life on a day-to-day basis, they'll be aware very early on when these changes start to take place.
Well, to me, the parents should definitely be worried. Like some of the signs might be, you know, your child coming in later and later all the time. Your child wanting to be out there in the streets more and more. A lot of times, you know, drug use and drug dealing go hand in hand. So, you know, if they come up with money out of the clear blue, you know they might be doing something wrong to get that money. So that might be something you might want to watch out for. Everybody knows like the red eyes, the munchies and stuff like that. But basically, like when kids start smoking weed and drinking and stuff like that, they stop caring about a lot of stuff. So, you know, if your child used to listen to what you told them, and now they're saying, man, just go ahead. Like they don't even want to hear you, you know, something might be up. If they used to be in the school every day and stuff like that, and now they just don't even care, school just another thing hassling them, you know, something might be up.
What parents might see the morning after smoking marijuana, or for that matter, any substance, is fatigue. They might see not only fatigue, they might see somebody sleep a lot, and that's a good point to intervene. Parents, actually, I think they should make the kids aware of drugs as soon as possible. When I say that, kids should be aware of what's going on outside the house around them as early as kindergarten, as far as like what's going on with drugs, this, that, and the other thing.
Nowadays, there's no need of hiding the fact about drugs are here. Everybody knows it. Matter of factly, the kids know it before the families or before the parents. So there's no need of being hush-mouthed about that sort of thing. If you have any doubt or you have an inkling that that's what's going on with your children, I think you should openly discuss it as a family.
Try to be as honest and open with your kids as you can be, because you know if your kids feel like they can't talk to you, they never will, and they'll go out there and they'll make a real big mistake, and you know sometimes they might not live to correct that mistake.
Because it can happen quick. You know, all it takes is your kid at a party who he's real good friends with or someone he admires a lot to break out of line or to pass him a joint.
Most kids get involved